Hello and welcome to the Learned It, Living It podcast with Darlington College. I'm delighted to be presented with a great number of guests today. But before we proceed, I'm just going to tell you what it's all about. So today I'm joined with some students that are involved with the Community News Project. It's a partnership between the National Council for the Training of Journalists, or NCTJ, that supports quality local journalism and improves diversity in the UK's newsrooms. Since the launch, the Community News Project has provided networking and training opportunities for over 280 people. Recruits are placed in the heart of local newsrooms, and in the next phase of the project, reporters will train towards the NCTJ Diploma in Journalism. The whole principle of the Community Reporter Scheme is for reporters to engage with communities, get to the heart of the stories that matter, and give people a voice to tell their untold story. More than 500 people responded to this opportunity and 6 were appointed. And I'm just counting there. I have 6 in the room with me today. So guys, welcome. How are you? Absolutely silent. They are here. How are you all? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm all good. Cheers. How are you?
I'm very well. I never get asked how I am. That's brilliant. Thank you. So obviously, huge pool of people have gone for this project. But what I want to do is, before we get into the details and what it's all about, could you just go around, if we start at the back there, could you just go along the back and then along the front and introduce yourselves, please?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Jen and I work at the Yorkshire Evening Post.
Fantastic.
Hi. My name is Emily and I work at the Newcastle Chronicle.
Hello, my name is Dee and I work for Kent Online.
My name's Evie. I work for Southwark News, so it's from London Bridge all the way down to East Dulwich in central London.
Hi, my name is Grace and I work at the Monmouthshire Beacon.
Hi, my name is Safiyyah and I work at the Lancashire Telegraph.
You're from all over the place. What's going on there? That's fantastic. Okay, so my first question, and I think most people listening to this with the question, so why are we in Darlington? Obviously, we're all over the place at different places. If we go with Southwark, for example, why Darlington? Tell me how that works.
So essentially, Darlington are the providers of the NCTJ course. So we do it once a week remotely. So we're in our newsroom Tuesday to Friday weekly, but we also have Sue, who is our law tutor, and then we have shorthand and essential journalism. So on a Monday, we basically learn how to do the job and then do it for the rest of the week. And Darlington's the provider of that.
Ah, fantastic. Right, that explains a lot. So I was like, how do you all come together every week? Brilliant. Okay. That's fantastic. So you're all here today, obviously, in Darlington. So do you come up to Darlington at certain times throughout the programme, or have you made a special trip just for me today? Special trip. Oh. So is this the first time you've had the pleasure of meeting each other in person?
Yes.
Yeah.
And when did you start on the project, if I come to yourself?
I think we started about 3 months ago, I think?
Yeah.
24th of February.
Yeah, 24th of February for me as
Yeah.
well. But I think it differs slightly for each of us. But
Okay. How did you come across the programme? Can I just ask, could you take that one for me? How did you come across it?
For me, it was good old LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a job and I had exhausted every option, I think. And a lot of the journalism opportunities are not northern friendly. A lot of them are based in London, from what I noticed. And then I really liked that this one let you choose which patch you wanted to be on. So I selected the Lancashire Telegraph, the Bolton Times, and one in Preston, which clearly isn't very memorable. But yeah, so I chose that one, not really thinking much of it. And then I think they got back to me like 2 months later, I did the interviews, and now I'm here.
Wow. Okay, I want to go into a bit of... Could you tell me about your journey in terms of finding the course and the information?
Yeah, so I graduated from university in 2023 with a degree in English. And at that point, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up traveling for a little bit. But I was writing articles in my free time, just for different online blogs on kind of anything and everything. Like I wrote bits about sport and kind of Tyson Fury. I wrote quite a bit about Taylor Swift and things like that as well. And so from that, I was thinking journalism is something that could be interesting. But I kind of started researching how on earth do you actually get into the industry? Because the thing is, all the entry-level jobs, they pretty much say you need an NCTJ qualification. And to get that, you either do a master's, you do a short-term course, or you find a job that will luckily kind of sponsor you to do it. And yeah, so I was kind of in the same way looking on LinkedIn, looking on Creative Access as well, and like every jobs board I could find. And somehow I found this. I didn't think I'd get it at all, but I thought I'd apply. And then now I'm here.
I love that. This is really interesting. I need to ask yourself, how did you find this?
So my journey was like the others. I'd finished my degree about a year ago, and I'd fortunately got an internship at the Newcastle Chronicle last summer. So I was
Okay.
general election and all sorts, but all the reporters I was working with were NCTJ qualified and had their shorthand. And I was thinking, how would I get that? And obviously my internship was coming to an end because it was temporary. And I saw this posted on LinkedIn, and a lot of my colleagues in the newsroom kind of said, you should try and apply for that, put yourself forward. And I was like, I don't know if I'll get it, but fortunately I did, and it's been great. And my experience as an intern kind of solidified that I really wanted to work as a journalist in a newsroom. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. That's really... Sorry, I had a shake it off joke about Taylor Swift before in my head. I was like, you couldn't just shake it off. Anyway, I just had to get it out of my system, otherwise I wouldn't be able to move on. I do apologise. Could you tell me about your journey into finding the project?
My journey was very long because I've done lots of different things before I end up here.
Yeah.
I live in lots of different countries. I'm from Poland originally.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a journalist, but I never believed it's possible because life had different plans. And then I saw this advert on Facebook and I just applied. I was doing lots of writing before. I wrote for Polish magazines and blogs, and I'm here.
When you go out and you're sort of doing it off your own back, I think it's fantastic, whether it's finding work experience or obviously internship, and it's really good to hear about it. Could you tell me about your journey?
Yeah, of course. So I'm the same as the girls over there. I graduated in 2023. I did a history degree.
Okay.
So writing, researching, it's always been a real passion of mine. But another passion's always been like content creation.
Yep.
So I've always had like a YouTube channel, a TikTok account where I just create videos. And it was sort of looking at a way to marry up the two passions that I had into a career. And I graduated uni and I got a sort of grad job in partnerships. But I saw this exactly, I think it was on LinkedIn as well, or potentially... Yeah, I think on the NCTJ website actually, and I found it and I thought this is like the opportunity just felt good and it felt right. And yeah, like we were talking about earlier, just the freedom to choose where you could do it. And yeah, I think it's just a great amalgamation of my skills and passions.
Yeah. Tell me about your journey.
I did English literature at A-level, so
Yeah.
love writing. And then after that I did Camp America in the summer and got to meet loads of new people, and I worked as a drama specialist there, and that built my confidence up. And I thought, I really want to get into I want to turn, I like writing, how I can turn that into a career. And I did work experience at the company that I work at now, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing. And then I saw the community news project on LinkedIn and I applied for it through that.
So the marketing team that have advertised this on LinkedIn, well done. I think is a fair way to say it. LinkedIn is a fantastic platform, and I think it's great that you're saying you've seen it on LinkedIn, because obviously you're trying to get into the qualification. We've identified that we needed the NCTJ qualification, but actually you're actively participating in the right circles to help yourself out. Because obviously if you're not on LinkedIn, you're not pushing it and you're not practicing your writing skills, you're obviously not going to see those opportunities. You may have the skills that you're working on in the background, but if you're not actively practicing what you preach, you don't necessarily see the opportunity there. So I think that's fantastic. So my question is, obviously, in terms of the community news project, what sort of role then has that in terms of because obviously there's other ways that people get their NCTJ. This project specifically, if I come to yourself, what does, don't look scared, what does it mean in terms of this project? What does it allow? What support has it given you? What's it allowed you to do?
I think for me, it's a step into the industry. It can be quite daunting within journalism. It tends to be who you know rather than what you know. There's some social capital involved within the industry. So I knew that once I wanted to get into journalism, I was a bit anxious as to how am I going to get there. So applying for this role, I didn't think much of it. And then during the interview, I didn't think much of it. And then I got the role, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is how I'm going to end up on Al Jazeera, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just a step into the industry.
So you've obviously got the ambition there with Al Jazeera.
I think the first step is always the hardest, like how am I going to do it? But I think now I have somewhat of an idea. I know who to talk to for the right advice. And like Mark, who we spoke to yesterday, was so inspiring. We were all saying afterwards, like really like has so much to say with ambition as well. And he was just...
Where was Mark from, if you don't mind me asking?
Where is Mark from?
He's like a visiting lecturer at the college, but he's had a fantastic career in broadcast, working at the BBC, loads of other places, the Independent,
ITV.
ITV.
Okay.
Doing something. Yeah.
So in short, the project has allowed you to get access to meet someone like that?
It doesn't really sound realistic in a sense. So like, how am I going to get into film journalism? How am I going to get into TV realism? It just seems like a whole other scope. But then now that we're here and we know who to talk to, it's a lot more approachable, I think.
Yes.
I think that's sort of scary as well, because like we have the enthusiasm and things like that, but it's almost like, how do I then turn that and then actually progress in it? So I feel like the Community News Project definitely allowed us to do that. And yeah, point us in the right direction, which is amazing.
I think that's half the battle sometimes. It's being able to understand what the direction is. Al Jazeera, what a fantastic ambition. Love that. But it's how do you get the direction to get... It's easy to go, I can see that, but how do you get the direction to go there? And it sounds like this is very much helping in terms of little by little, step by step, you can start piecing together the pieces. So one of my other questions is, obviously, would you have been able to train as a journalist? What... I suppose I think it was yourself at the back. You were talking about how you're doing your internship, and obviously a lot of people have got the NCTJ qualification, and you're going, how can I go about this? I mean, obviously this has played a huge role in getting you there. What are the barriers that we're facing in terms of looking at that qualification?
To be on this course is a really fortunate position, because otherwise it would be self-funding, or if you knew someone in the industry. So to have this position, and also what's I think unique about this project is that we're working on the job, which is great. So you're learning alongside reporting, which is like fantastic, because I don't think any of us actually had a degree in journalism, so maybe we didn't have those backgrounds about learning and what to kind of do on a job. So having the training and working is fantastic for us all to kind of... And being in the newsroom, we had got other reporters that we can lean on and ask advice, which is invaluable, really. Yeah. Yeah,
I think obviously you talked about the opportunity where you might find an employer, they'll take you on, they could fund you through the course. Obviously, that'll be a really for opportunity. I mean, are we seeing a huge amount of people trying to become journalists at the moment, at present?
Yeah, I definitely think in the age of social media as well, it's a great thing that it's more accessible, but it also means that there's much more people gunning for the same pool of jobs. But I do think it's looking and exploring other mediums like this, for example, podcast creation, being a video journalist. I mean, that's a role that just didn't exist, say, 30 years ago for a journalist. So I think it's less, print newspaper journalism, like proper serious stuff anymore, and you can kind of shape your own personal brand and shape yourself to be the journalist you want to be in and the field you want to go into, which is, I think, great. And we're learning more and more about that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because you talked about newspaper and print, and everyone, when I think certainly my age, just slightly older than yourselves, but obviously you think traditionally when you hear the word journalist, the association previously was newspaper, okay? And yes, newspaper's still there, and the newspaper agencies, you're working for, they've had to adapt and change what they do. So give me an idea, could you give me an idea on how are the newspaper organisations, how are they changing? What is the landscape at the moment for a journalist?
It's more open to visual section. Well, we're doing lots of podcasts, we're doing TV, we're doing radio, so it's completely different. It's not only newspaper. So yeah, it's more open to public, and people, they don't read like they used to these days. They base more on the video news.
Yeah, so people are consuming media in different ways. Social media, you've talked about that. So do you cover things like social media and things like that on part? And give me an insight into what that looks like.
I've been given like full access to our papers, TikTok and Instagram. So my editor, she pulled me in the room and she was saying, we've been looking into how we want to improve our social media, but none of us know how to do it. And I'm the youngest in my newsroom. So she said like, because it was something I spoke about in my interview as well.
Mm-hmm.
Paper is really engaging, but not in social media. And if you want to draw in people who are within our age demographic and younger, you're going to have to, like, it would be ignorant to not include social media in your news at this point. So she pulled me into a separate room and she was saying, like, here's our username and password. Do what you want, do what you think is right, we trust your judgment, and be creative with it. So I haven't posted anything yet.
I mean, yeah, but I suppose that's the thing. We work in social media here, and we are constantly having to develop and adapt. I'm looking to Adam off camera here. We're constantly having to develop and adapt, and also there's so much content that goes out there, which is meme related. The Ice Bucket Challenge is back as of now. That was 10 years ago.
We were literally talking about that.
Yeah.
When did it come back?
And it's back again. Next we'll be doing, is it the Harlem Shuffle or Shake? I can't remember what it was. I will do a mannequin challenge before we know it. But I think the problem is that they take up a lot of the focus of social media. So obviously negotiating how you then report news, report stories, obviously you can't really be doing that while getting a bucket of ice thrown over your head. Yeah. So there's a big challenge, I think, in terms of establishing how you go about that. Has anyone got any insight on that in terms of how news agencies are doing it?
Yeah, I've got an example actually, because working at the Southwark News, it's like a substantial paper because it's based in central London, but it's a small team. So if you're thinking about, a good day on clicks on the website might be, 30,000 clicks. The first social media video I put out and did got 1.4 million views. So it's such a great way to access a new audience. And granted, a lot of those people aren't in the Southwark area, but it's accessing them. And the community news product's all about getting the voices of Southwark heard. So it's accessing such a wider audience. But I think it's a real fine line between, like you were saying, like being heard amongst all of the meme content and things. So I think it's learning a new language in a way, like a social media language, and learning how to grab the attention of an audience to make it not seem like a news story. Because I feel like a lot of people will be on, like, where's the fun stuff? I don't want to listen to news. So it's portraying a news story in like a interesting social media friendly way.
Yeah. It's a really interesting space, I think, at present. So why is it important to have the NCTJ qualification? What is it? Let's go bare bones from the start. What is it? Why do we need that qualification? Why is it so important?
I think it's important because it's a nationally recognised qualification. So I think applying for different jobs, I think in journalism, they look to see if you have the qualification. So I think by having it, it kind of opens what more opportunities which are available to you. So yeah, I think it's an amazing skill to have. So
my next follow-up question is, obviously that qualification's in place. Someone mentioned legal. Who was it earlier? It was very early on. Said someone about legal. I'm sure there's legal lecturer or something. Information about legal. Yeah. So obviously the legalities around journalism. What does this qualification do to help you achieve? To make sure that you are sitting on the right side of the law, you are reporting accurately, and this, that, and the other.
So essential law module, isn't it? So we discuss how what we're publishing aligns with the law. So there are certain codes that we have to follow, ethical codes that we have to follow, and there are certain clauses that we have to follow. So we were talking about clause 6.9, what was it, 7? It's talking about how we protect minors in certain cases and their anonymity, and how if they're above the age of 18, how can we protect victims of sexual assault or physical assault, anyone who wants to waive their right to anonymity. So we have an essential law module with Sue every Monday, and she breaks down the different codes and the different clauses, and she presents different scenarios in which they have been applied to, so different case studies. So today we were looking at Brianna, Guy? Yeah, Brianna Guy, and she had been stabbed by two teenagers who were 15 and 16, and they were unnamed. And then we were discussing why they were anonymous, and then what circumstances allows them to raise that anonymity. One of them would be in the case of public interest or public safety, if they are going to be turning 18 soon. So there are different circumstances where anonymity can be raised. But yeah, we have a whole module in which we discuss how we don't get on the wrong side of the law and what we're writing aligns with the law as well.
Yeah, there's a whole host of things that you need to consider, don't you, when it comes to legalities? And obviously that's a core part of the course, is that correct?
Yeah.
What other things are you doing as part of the course then? Take me through it if anyone wants to go.
We do shorthand, which is...
I've got loads of questions about shorthand. So, because I'm going to shout him out, Simon, off camera. Ian Lamming. The wonderful Ian. Fantastic. Have you met Ian? Have they? No, oh, tomorrow. Lucky you. I work with Ian. Ian is a lovely, lovely individual, and he's a very good... But I remember looking over at his notepad, and he was like scribbling away, and I'm like, he can't write. He's a journalist, and he can't... And then I realised it was shorthand. And I had no idea what he was doing. So take me through shorthand, please, and just give me an overview on what it's all about.
So shorthand is basically a fast form of writing where you condense each letter down to a small symbol, and you also kind of learn how to join words in a unique way. So it means that if you're interviewing or kind of just taking quotes from different people, you're able to write a whole lot faster. Because I think increasingly people do record stuff, and at the moment, whilst we don't have shorthand, we do record stuff. But recordings can fail, and it's also a lot more time consuming to have to go through your recording afterwards. So our challenge is, firstly, we have to get to 60 words a minute. And then the aim is to get to 100 words a minute so that you can write kind of at the speed that most people talk.
So how would you describe how it looks to somebody if they've never seen it before?
It's almost like
Messy.
yeah.
Messy.
It looks like Egyptian, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's when I looked at Ian's notepad, and I was like, this he's a journalist. He must use the keyboard because he can't write with a pen. But it was shorthand, and I didn't
It
realise.
looks like a doctor's handwriting as well.
Yeah.
And I've never made sense of doctor's handwriting. I don't know if they're using shorthand as well.
Yeah.
But they look like they're writing in scribbles too.
Yeah. So what? Obviously, when you're talking to people and work with people, do you do parts on the module that is like? So I'm talking to you today. I'm trying to understand and lean into the various things that you're saying. You know, obviously, when you're reporting a story, it's important to listen to the individual, but it's also hard to record things down. Yeah. So that's where shorthand comes in.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to get good at shorthand where you're not going, how do I write this word again, and listen to the person that we're talking to?
I think it's just doing a bit of practice every day. Because I think if you practice every day and you learn like the outlines and things like that, then it becomes almost like second nature kind of, because you're not really thinking, oh, how do I write this? It's almost just like in the back of your
Eventually,
head.
it'll become muscle memory.
Exactly. So I just think it's constant practice. Even if it's just a little bit amount of time every single day, it builds up and it adds up over time.
Yeah, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
So my other question is, what sort of things are you doing on the course that help you kind of get to the real issues? You know, because obviously sometimes you can talk to people, they can give you a closed answer. Obviously, you need to ask open questions. But how do you really sort of lean in and look to someone when you're, you know, to actually get to the crux of a story? What are the things that you're looking for? What are you doing on the course to help you understand that?
I think actually it's a lot on the course, but I think what's particularly unique about our situation is it's learning it on the job. I think a lot of people who do the fast track NCTJ, so they're doing the course we do, but say in maybe 6 months instead of over the 2 years, 1 day a week. I've spoken to a few people who have done it that way, and they find it great because, yeah, you get your qualification, but unless you have that practical application, it's almost like you can just be told how to do anything. Whereas when you go out and do it, I feel like it's so, I don't know about you guys, but I just find it all clicks. So it's learning with Joanne, our essential journalist tutor, it's learning how to craft a great news story. And it's okay knowing all of the news values, but then going out on a Tuesday morning and putting it into practice straight away, which I think the community news product allows us to do really well.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that, and you've touched on it nicely, so thank you, about how does the course give you the confidence? Obviously, you're doing the training, you're doing a placement. Take me through some of that journey from when you've started, what you've learned in the last few months.
Yeah, God, where to start? I mean, I'd never written a proper news story. Like, I think a lot of us had done features here and there, maybe working for student publications, but an actual news story that's happening there and then, I feel like it's something you can't really describe unless you do it. And there's the time pressure, there's the, you want to tell the story of the person you're talking to well. I feel like they put trust in you, so you want to do it to the best of your ability. And just the confidence change I've seen even in 2 months is crazy. Yeah. So what else did you?
No, it was just linking to the role. What about yourself? Obviously, you did your internship previously.
Yeah, I also think if you've got an idea for a story, no idea is not a bad idea, and everyone brings fresh perspectives to the role. So maybe beforehand, my perspective of local journalism was breaking news and like traffic and travel. But actually, with this project, we kind of uncover untold stories of people that wouldn't have their voices heard, and a lot of niche or quirky and funny stories that make up the newsroom and kind of full picture of our communities in the best way possible, as well as maybe the worst news is what people would think, oh, just crime or those kind of stories. In fact, there's actually loads of stories from people that like flourish in our area that are really important, and we have the privilege to tell their stories to people.
So you've teed that up perfect for me. Why does it matter for journalists who reflect and understand on the communities they report on? So what I'd like to do is go around each of you and just tell me a little bit about the importance of reporting in your community. Okay, so could we start with yourself at the back?
Yeah, so I work at the Yorkshire Evening Post, but we have a mainly Leeds focus. And I think in general, local news is really important because in national news, whether it's online or in print, there's not always the space for the smaller stories that I tend to focus on. And I tend to focus on a lot of human interest stories. So quite often if someone's maybe raising money for charity, or if they've maybe faced a particular complex situation that they want to talk about, or even there's some little data journalism pieces where I'm analysing kind of within Leeds, kind of what's changed over time, what has stayed the same, and kind of asking why with it. And I think it's really nice to be able to be the voice of that and kind of be that kind of space where nationally there isn't that, because it's not an interest of people not in Leeds, but for people in Leeds it really does matter to them. And for me, so I actually work mainly in print, but there's loads of people who buy that newspaper every single day because these stories, they're relevant to them.
Yeah, I really like that. What about yourself?
Yeah, kind of touching on what you said, a lot of human interest stories, but also the way news is changing. It's really good to kind of adapt and get more younger people reading or consuming news in some form of or another. So a lot of stories kind of focusing on maybe people of a younger target audience is great to kind of keep the continuity of the newsroom going forward, and then also touching on areas that are quite underrepresented in our area. So at the Newcastle Chronicle, I'm trying to do some work on like the west end of the city, which is more underrepresented, and touching on last year, the riots that happened in the summer, those kind of people in the community whose voices are worth speaking about. Lots of work with those.
Yeah, fantastic. What about yourself? Tell me a bit about your community that you're working in.
Well, I work in Kent. It's west North Kent actually. So I'm covering like the girls, similar things. But I also I think because I'm Eastern European, I bring a bit of different approach to the news, and I'm covering stories which they never been covered before because I'm talking to Polish people and some other people. So, for example, I did a feature about why Polish people actually stayed in UK after Brexit. So that was quite interesting and kind of new for our
Yeah, it's like a fresh look at it, I suppose, isn't it?
Kind of is, and I've noticed I've got different approach to certain things than my editors or my colleagues. So.
Oh, brilliant. Tell me a bit more about Suffolk.
Yeah, so Southwark News is one of just 2 independent newspapers, paid-for newspapers left in central London. So it's in quite a unique position in the capital where your competitors aren't, the local town over. Your competitors are, BBC London. We've got News UK up the road. So it's giving a local voice in a city that's saturated by businessmen and gentrification is a huge issue. And Southwark itself is just a huge mix of all kinds of people. So you've got, the real local like Cockney population, but then you've got a huge influx of other people, but it's ensuring those, nostalgic voices are continuing to be heard. So I think it's a real interesting newsroom to be placed in, because you never know who you're going to meet, or who's going to come to your newsroom and tell you a story. So yeah, I think it's quite a unique one.
Yeah. And yourself?
So I work in Monmouthshire, and I feel like as much as like online journalism, is important, obviously getting your videos and like the online website, I also feel like print is still really important as well, because there are people who, might not have access to technology or don't use it. And I feel like my local paper, I feel like we've built like a trusted audience, and I feel like it's important to amplify the voices of our community and things like that. And people, obviously, we keep coming back to our paper and things like that. But yeah, I think that is really important.
And yourself?
So my patch is centred in Blackburn, and I have different towns surrounding it that we also touch on. And within my newsroom, there's I think 9 of us in total, but I think 4 or 5 on a daily. And within that newsroom, I am the only brown girl, and I'm also the only Muslim girl as well. And our town has a growing, increasing population of South Asians and Muslims. We have 50,000, and I think the newsroom should reflect people that they're writing on as well. There are so many stories about South Asian, but they're written by someone who isn't from a South Asian background, which isn't wrong. But I think the perspective that I bring is that I understand the cultural nuances of what's happening on a deeper level to my counterparts as well. So I think me going into this role and bringing in the perspective that they were perhaps lacking before, like, for example, when they write about Eid or when they write about Ramadan, they're not going to understand it to the same extent that I do. Not trying to gatekeep the religion, but I follow the religion, so I understand it a little bit better than they do. So yeah, we just had Ramadan, and like all the story that they had, they pretty much passed it on to me, and I was so happy to do that, because I want to write about the people, but my people, I want to write about the background that I'm from. That's what I'm passionate about as well. And I think, I had my co-workers asking me, what do you do here? What does this mean? What does this mean? Now they let me do it. Like, I understand what it means. I'll of course explain it to them as well. But I think me going into it, I already know who I'm talking to as well. And like for some participants or like some interviewees that I have, they don't speak English. I speak other languages as well, so I can interview them in a different language as well. And a lot of like the population in Blackburn don't speak English as well. They speak Urdu, or they speak Punjabi, they speak Hindi. I speak all those languages. Not to brag, but I speak the languages as well. So like if there's a story about like this like 70-year-old woman who doesn't speak English, how are you going to get that story from her? You need someone who, touching on what Dee said, she brings in the Polish perspective, I bring in a Pakistani perspective, and I can speak to them, and I can understand them, I can relate to them, and I can translate that into the story from an authentic perspective.
You've just answered why is it important to have diversity in newsrooms, but I think all your points are absolutely valid.
Even like in this room, I'm the only person of colour, and I recognise that every time I go into a room, I will always be most likely the only person of colour, but that's fine. That's what I'm here for. Like, I'll show other Muslim girls, other brown girls, not to be called like cliche, like representation matters, but it does. Like, it was one of the things I was a bit nervous about coming here. I was like, I know I'm going to be the only brown person, and sometimes when you are the only brown person, it is a bit like like I do stand out like a sore thumb, like with how I dress or with how I talk. But it's fine, because it's more like an invitation to other people. Like,
absolutely, I was going to say,
come in.
If other people want to do journalism, and they can see themselves in yourself, then you'll be inspiring them and bringing them on.
And like growing up watching the news, obviously, we're not really represented in the best light either. Like a lot of the men who look a lot like, my uncles, my grandfathers, they're often described as, this or the other. And it's just good to have someone in the room who can challenge that perspective as well. Like, are you sure this is how you want to describe that person? Like, we all have unconscious biases. I'm sure I do as well without realizing. So I think having like different diverse voices in the community and in the newsroom as well, you can challenge those perspectives. Like, is this really how you want to write about this story?
Extremely well said. No, I think it's absolutely valuable and important that that we have diversity in all walks of life and representation, because it's got to represent our communities at the end of the day, and that's really important. So no, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. My next question then, obviously we've touched on diversity, we've talked on working in your local communities. So why do you think this project, the Community News Project, needs to continue? And what do you think would be lost if it didn't exist? Would you like to?
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's so important. I think it's gone from having a cohort, like I think there was 218 or something, have passed through the project. And it used to be cohorts of 30 or 40 people. There's now 6 of us. So I think you're already seeing a slowing down of it, which, if anything, it should be speeding up, because, you know, big media companies, social media, it's drowning out voices of the local communities. So I just think it is vital. And what would be lost is all of the people who you wouldn't hear from usually. You know, it's the people, like I was explaining in Southwark, specifically the older generation, who don't know how to tell their stories. It's going out and seeking them, because they probably won't always come forward and tell them themselves. So it's going out, and I feel like we're sort of out in our community searching for stories, and they don't always fall on your lap. And the Community News Community News Project allows us to go out and seek out those vital stories. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that?
I think also I think there's one bit about kind of it's an opportunity to tell untold stories, but also to get different people into the industry. It's really important, because in journalism, it can kind of be survival of the richest, in that to get that standard NCTJ qualification, it's a lot of money. Typically, you have to pay for it. And on top of that, I think there's a lot of people who are able to afford to do unpaid experience, but other people can't. And this is a way of actually getting the same experience to meet the same kind of qualifications of the people who either already knew someone in the industry, or were able to pay for their qualification, or able to take their very leisurely time kind of building up their experience on their own.
Yeah, I think that's really valid. I think removing cost as a barrier, I think it's really important to do that. And
Can I just say one
yeah,
really
of course.
quick thing? I was speaking to someone who's quite high up in the industry, actually, and he said to me that what we're doing in 2 months, the apprentices at other huge news organisations wouldn't do in 2 years, because of the scope that the news project allows us to do.
Okay.
So actually, it's almost that, I mean, I know we're all super grateful, but it's actually the best thing possible for our career, because we can go out and do a crime story one day, then we're writing a feature on something. We're in a podcast studio right now, just, you know, as part of the project. So I think it's having that scope. It's going to our editors and saying, oh, I think there's a really good story here, and being given the freedom to check it out. You're not the one sub-editing copy that AI has written. AI is like a huge thing. So I think it's keeping that human voice. And we wouldn't, if we were, you know, on a really prestigious grad scheme that some of the people, like you were just saying, might be on, they don't have the, you know, the scope and the breadth that we're getting with this.
So to be a bit flippant, why do we need the human voice over AI? Why don't we just let AI do it? I know the answer, but why don't we just let AI do our journalism? Like, what do we think? How do we feel about that?
I feel like as AI is developing, you know, it's a massive thing now, but I think having your own voice, it's more personal, and I feel like AI doesn't really have that. Like, it obviously, you know, is a massive thing, but it can be quite generic, and I feel like it's important, obviously, to have your own personal opinion when you're writing as well, and adding your own kind of, I don't know how to put this, like personal perspective.
Yeah.
AI can't replicate the tone or genuine connection.
It doesn't have emotions.
It will always be a robot. You know, if you know something is written by AI, I feel like I would be less likely to read it, because I want it to come from a person. I want, you know,
you want
someone to sit there and articulate their thoughts, think about what they're writing about. I feel like when we write it ourselves, we're thinking about every word as well, and like every comma we use, every semicolon we use, we're thinking about it. Whereas with AI, it's just jobs done, read it.
Yeah, a few rocket emojis in there, and
There's no enthusiasm.
Yep.
I feel like when you're writing as well, like it is personal and it does come from like within. You're thinking about your audience and like the way that they're going to read it as well. So
And the way we write, like everything influences the way we write. Our perspectives are influenced by all of our social factors as well. Like AI, it's just a
well, AI can't care, can it? Because it just takes data in, data out. It can't care. It can't interview somebody in the same way that yourselves would interview someone. It
We're
can't.
all women here, and like if we're writing about a story about a woman, we would understand what to write about, and the gender implications, this, that, the other. But AI would just overlook all the different factors that supposedly don't matter. You just need to get the job done, but it's more important than that.
I'm glad I asked that question. Because it's the question I hear all the time with different people in terms of business and what people are doing, and I've got AI to do it and this, that and the other.
Of course, they're killing the planet. So.
Well, that's the other side, obviously.
also, I
News.
feel like, sorry, I'm going on.
That's all right. Go for it.
I feel like it brings obviously more perspective as well, because AI might bring one angle, but there's so many other angles which you could maybe discover.
Hmm.
by adding
Well,
your own
six
sense.
awards would bring something different to the table.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
we were given like one word, we'd all like
Yeah.
have different connotations with it.
I feel like we know our readers and our audience, whereas AI is just generic. Whereas we know what our readers want to read and
Yeah.
what's important to them.
Yeah,
As many guidelines as you want, but it just wants to have that human touch.
yeah. The human touch is so important. I think it's actually more important nowadays, especially with all the social media and everything else. You find that if someone goes back to a traditional marketing technique or something like that, where they actually take time to engage with people properly, you'll always find that probably really does reach further if someone just takes a bit of time. It really makes a difference. Okay, so what I want to do, we're getting near the end, but what I want to ask each and every one of you is what you actually love about your role. So if I start with yourself and we'll work back the way.
So what was the question?
What do you like about your role? What do you love about it?
My job.
Yeah.
Oh, what do I like about it? I like that. So I've always had a very strong sense of justice and a strong sense of self as well. And I studied sociology at university, and it was doing my sociology degree when I was learning about different factors that influence your position in society. I've always had a passion for how does racism affect someone, how does sexism affect someone, and I really enjoyed the human aspect of it as well. Like some of the stories that I get are race related or gender related or class related, and I really enjoy bringing the sociological aspect to writing as well. So I really like when I'm talking to someone and they might not necessarily realize it themselves, but I realize the social implications of why this happened to them or why that happened to them. I really enjoyed putting it to paper as well. I really enjoyed doing the research. I love doing research. I was best friends with Google Scholar when I was at uni. I loved using Google Scholar, and I loved being able to translate all the thoughts that I had onto. Well, it's not.
It sounds like you're constructing a jigsaw almost. You've got all your various parts and you're sort of bringing it all together.
That's something we're not allowed to do in our essential law journalism. We're not allowed to put, like if we're keeping someone anonymous, we're not allowed to put together different pieces that will lead to the identification.
Oh, yeah.
Which isn't relevant.
No, it's all relevant.
Yeah.
It's all absolutely relevant.
But yeah, I just really enjoy bringing my take to something. I feel like I have a lot of opinions that challenge the norm in some sense, and I want to get it out there. I used to be really shy about saying, I think this, I think that, but now I'm just past it. I'm like, this is what I have to say, and you will listen to it. If you don't like it, then just turn the page.
That's fair. That's fair. Human voice. It's brilliant. Yourself.
I love being like a point of contact to like amplify the voice of the community. I think it's really important that like members of your community can see that you're approachable and things like that, and know that you're a point of contact for them to go to for anything, like if they have a story that needs to be told. And that is probably like the main thing that I love. I love going out and kind of meeting different members of the community and seeing if like there's a story that needs to be told. And yeah, I just feel like it's really important to make that connection with people in the community so that they know if they've got a story that you're someone that you can get that they can go to.
Absolutely. What about yourself?
Yeah, I just feel I love my job because I feel like I'm going to work and doing my hobby every day. And it's just a great thing to find so early on in my career. I just genuinely feel like journalism's my passion, and I'm so grateful for the community news project, but also in the newsroom I've ended up in, because I'm learning so much. I'm not originally from Southwark, so I don't have that real, like, I haven't grown up there like a lot of you guys have grown up in your patches. But I think I'm just discovering so much about the area, so much about London itself, and yeah, going to work and feeling like I'm looking at the clock and saying, oh wow, 6 hours have gone by and I've just been engrossed in this one thing I've been doing, and it's been so interesting and so amazing. So yeah, that's definitely the thing. I think, like, I don't feel like I've even got a job at the moment. I'm just doing
It's the best way.
hobby.
It's the best way. What about yourself? What do you enjoy the most?
Like Evie, I love my job and I like writing. I like telling people stories as well. And also, I like the fact I can be different person, depends on what I'm doing. I'm learning things. Like, I've got a request from my editor to learn about cricket, so I have to join the cricket team and learn about this. And this is amazing because I can learn every time something different, and I can be different person, a bit like a spy.
Yeah, I love that.
And yeah, I love politics. So I like to. I like the fact that I can talk to MP and say what I think about this and hear the voices. So.
Brilliant. And what about yourself?
Pretty much what all you girls have discussed. No 2 days are the same, and that might sound generic, but it's really true. The variety of different works that you can get involved with in the community. Like, one day you could be interviewing people, and the next day you could be getting involved in like a I Tried piece. So, for instance, my editor was like, "Can you go try out rugby?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, the variety of work. It doesn't feel like you work in a job. We've all loved researching and writing, and it's getting to do something you're passionate about is really enjoyable.
And what about yourself?
Yeah, I think the cool thing about being a journalist is that it's your job to write about interesting people and interesting things. And I think over the past few weeks, there's been so many times where I've been kind of researching something and talking to people where I've just felt like, how lucky am I that this is my job? Like, I interviewed a 100-year-old woman who had volunteered in World War II. And for about 30 minutes, my job that I was getting paid for was just to listen to her. And I found that just like, it was a really grounding moment. And it's been so cool, the amount of different things that I've been able to do. Like, it is the thing where no 2 days are ever the same. Like, I do TV reviews where my job's just to have an opinion, which is crazy. And yeah, I feel very lucky. And one more thing, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
We actually can make a difference, which is, I think, amazing. I think one of you guys were talking about.
Yeah, so I wrote one story about a mother whose daughter had a rare genetic condition, like 1 in 100 people were affected. And she wanted a inner walker, which is a device that's not often at NHS, to help her daughter walk. And I spoke to her, had a lovely conversation, wrote the article. And then about a month later, a local businessman contacted our news desk for her details. So I got in touch with him, and, he said, I read your story, it was really moving. I'd like to pay the whole £2,000 to provide her insurance for the year.
Wow.
So it was really touching to then ring the mother and tell her, and it almost, brought me to tears to think if her story hadn't been told, that might not have been the case. So it goes to show that we're not just writing in a newsroom, it touches people, and the impact it makes is great.
Yeah, I think people often forget, because the journalists always get hyped up in the movies and things like this, that they're just after dishing the dirt on somebody, and it's very much not the case. And I think I'm looking off camera. It's like this is like 6 episodes to do here. You could do one with each of you, because it's absolutely fascinating. Each individual story, each area that you're working in, it's just incredible. And then the difference that you're obviously clearly making in your communities is just absolutely fantastic. I think what I want to go on to now is just, if someone was looking to do journalism now, so was it 12 months ago, say? Ish. A few months ago, what would you be saying to them? What advice would you be giving to them? And don't just, obviously you're going to say qualification, Yeah, we understand. But what things should they be doing around that? So if we could just have a little bit from each person, that would be great.
Yeah, I think one thing is don't underestimate the opportunities that you can make for yourself. Like, I think with social media being such a powerful thing, you don't have to wait until you've got that golden dream job before you start doing journalism. You know, you can make a TikTok today or tomorrow. You can make your own Substack and write articles, or there's loads of blogs that you don't need any previous experience to start kind of pitching ideas to and applying for. So I think just start doing something creative. And even if it's not exactly what you want to do, so say you want to work in podcasting, you don't necessarily need to start with a podcast. You can sidestep so easily. You can start with one little social media thing and see what it builds onto.
Yep, that's brilliant. Thank you. What about
Yeah.
yourself?
Don't put yourself down. Be confident that every little bit of experience will add to your personal portfolio, and you can always use it back as examples of how you've got there. And maybe don't worry if you feel it's too late or you don't have the certain qualifications, because there's always going to be avenues if you're kind of confident in putting yourselves in the right circles, maybe reaching out to people on LinkedIn or even messaging us, kind of like message, you know, your local news organisations and see if you can get involved in maybe a bit of work experience or anything like that where you can kind of get your foot in the door. There's always an opportunity somewhere.
Yourself?
I would just say go for it. Don't be afraid. Because I'm a very good example. I'm a mature student and I'm from Poland. So you may say I have no chance, but then I just tried and I got it. So.
Oh, good on you.
Amazing. Yeah, I would say, just following on from what the girls said, like, don't be embarrassed. Like, the only person who's looking out for your future is yourself. And it's more embarrassing to laugh at someone who is following their dream, or, you know, I mean that in the sense of, if you are gonna do content creation or something and make your own personal brand, it's so important. I think there's like a phrase we were sort of talking about earlier, which sounds really motivational, but it's like, the time will pass anyway. And it's thinking like, oh, I would love to do that, but it'll take me 2 years. The time will pass anyway.
I literally have that in my combo.
Yeah, like it's like, I think it's just crazy that this qualification is going to take us 2 years, but we would be 2 years older if we didn't do it and follow our passion.
And the regret.
The regret. Yeah. So I think that's the advice I'd give. And yeah, like we're saying, reach out, and you're the only one looking out for your future, especially if you're in a position where maybe financially you're self-taught, or you're self-funded yourself through university or something like that, that there are opportunities for you as well. And it's not, you don't have to have been handed everything on a plate.
Yep. What about yourself? What would you say?
I feel like it's always important to always believe in yourself and like don't compare yourself to other people, because like I feel like it can be easy sometimes to doubt yourself and just think, oh, like I've only made a small step, but that small step could take you so far. And like from doing like 3 days of work experience, now I'm here like doing the community news project, and I think it's like I'm having an amazing time learning so many new things, meeting all you guys as well. So yeah, just always believe in yourself and don't compare yourself, because like you can do it.
Absolutely. And what do you say to someone?
Definitely, comparison really is a thief of joy. I think for me, it would be to be aware of what's happening outside of your personal bubble, check in on what's going on in other countries, consume as much as international media as you can. I think being a journalist is a huge privilege. Like, there are journalists in other countries, like in Palestine, for example, they're targeting journalists. There are just so many journalists who have been killed recently. Like, there are like 3 different names I have on the top of my head. But I think be aware of the privilege that you have as well when you're going into this. Like, of course, like, it's so easy for me to sit here and be like, I'm from a minority background, I'm the only one of this. But I'm so fortunate to grow up in this country as well. You know, not others have the same experience. And I think as a journalist, you have that responsibility to check in on yourself, reflect, and make sure you're doing justice to the stories that you're telling, whether it be local, whether it be international, but just try to do everything with justice as well. Have that sense of justice. You can't be a journalist and not have a sense of justice, in my opinion. You need to have that passion and that drive. So I think, yeah, just be aware of what's happening around you. Just check in on yourself. Don't get too arrogant, you know. Just do your best.
Doing your best is really important, though. It really is, and I can see the passion and drive coming through you, and it's wonderful, and I can see it from all of you. My last closing question is: obviously, you're doing this with Darlington College. So how's the college been supporting you? So you're doing online lectures. Give me, are you working 4 days a week and 1 day? Yeah. So could you just give me a bit of insight into what that 1 day working with the college looks like? What sort of things are you doing? What support are you getting from the college? What assignments are you having to do? Obviously, you're here today. Just give me a bit of that insight if you may.
Yeah, so obviously on Mondays our college day, so we normally start with shorthand, and then after we'll get a few maybe tasks to do, and then hand them back in to see like kind of how we can improve and like what we got right and things like that. And then we have breaks in between as well, but we then have law, which is really good as well, and then we have essential journalism as well. But it's all amazing. Like, we learn so many skills, which obviously we can then transfer to working in the office the other 4 days of the week. Because now in the back of my mind, I don't know if it's like in the office, I'm thinking in the back of my head, oh yeah, like I learned that the other day. And it's like almost just thinking how we can translate those skills that we learn on the Monday then to actually put them into practice as well, which I think is really good. So we've got loads of support.
Perfect. And then could you tell me a bit about the assessment? Are you having to do what you haven't do projects?
So there's a couple different assessments that we do. So for the shorthand, we submit when we feel ready to do 60 words a minute, working up to the 100, which is gold standard for the NCTJ. But we're also working towards our law and ethics exam, which will take us more of a year. And we're being supported every week on progress in that. And we're kind of learning at the moment what will make an exam question and kind of revise, and looking forward to that in the future. So we've got a few different variations of exams and portfolio style coursework, so it's very varied.
Sounds really good. I want to do it. It sounds really good fun. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today. It is really appreciated. And like I said, I think I could sit with all of you for probably about an hour and a half, and we'd have a really good conversation. We'd find out all sorts of interesting things. It'd be absolutely amazing. But what I'd like to say is thank you so much for obviously sharing your stories, sharing what you're doing in your communities, and we look forward to, because obviously you've just started, so we've got you for a couple more years yet, so we can get them back in. That would be fantastic. I'm looking off camera. So yeah, it'd be great to get you back in and see how your course is developing, how you're progressing, and hear about more of those community impact stories as well. I mean, that was phenomenal. But we'd just like to wish you obviously all the best with your work and your studies, and obviously keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a fantastic job. That is all for today. If you want to know more about any of the information in the podcast, we've got some information in the description below. And if you want to find out more, you can visit darlington.ac.uk and look on the website there. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me today. And you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for asking how I was at the start. I really appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.